It is the last business bulletin for the year 2023. Hello and welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, panel members of the Joy Business End of Year Review Program describes Ghana's economic condition in 2023 as a difficult and challenging year, but hopeful 2024 would bring economic relief under an IMF program.
22, we started having this inflation that we experienced because we were paying 3%, just 3% flat rate, and then we migrated to 22%.
I think we've had mixed episodes. The first quarter of 2023 was quite a challenging one.
I think the positives outweigh.
Meanwhile, Ghanaians urged to live within their means next year since 2024 is an election year.
I'm expecting that Ghanaians live within our means. This is an election year. We may see a lot of activities. But for us to be able to stay afloat with these new taxes coming in, the strategy is let's live within our means.
Plus, Ghana Revenue Authority goes after $2.8 billion in accounts of Ghanaians resident abroad for tax purposes.
Coming from 45 countries, and that is the first one we have received. The next one we are expecting, which will come early January, is coming from 80 countries. And for the 40 countries, the total value of the 70,000 accounts of Ghanaian residents outside is $2.8 billion.
We've got details of these and many others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story, panel members of the Joy Business End of Year program have described Ghana's economic condition in 2023 as a difficult and challenging year. They are, however, hopeful the year 2024 will bring some relief to businesses as government expects the $600 million second tranche IMF program. Now, the panel was made up of economist Professor Peter Quartey, president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, that's GUTA, Joseph Obeng, and finance lecturer Professor Williams Pripra. The rest are the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Chumakwabua, President of the Ghana Hotels Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr., and General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe. Describing the year as difficult, Professor Quartey pointed out that high food inflation was a major issue that affected households and income of consumers. He advised government to pursue fiscal policies that will help the work of the central bank in stabilizing prices.
I think we've had mixed episodes. The first quarter of 2023 was quite a challenging one. Then gradually things started picking up in 2020, the second half, and then the third quarter, gradually up to the current. So we've had mixed episodes, a very challenging era, and then an era or one or two quarters where things started picking up. Some were prescribed as turning the corner, but I'm not sure whether we really turn the corner. But so that for me is the way I can describe the 2023, the economy. We had debt exchange program, we had IMF program, we had a very difficult, painful debt exchange exercise where people lost incomes. The banking sector especially lost so much in terms of interest income, and they are still paying for the effects of the debt exchange. It's also feeding into interest payments, feeding into their cost of operations. We saw very high inflation rates. Food inflation, it will shock you that even the food growing areas, food inflation were much higher than you will find in Accra. And poverty levels were extremely high. Data from Statistical Service shows that about 23 districts had poverty, multidimensional poverty, above 50%. And you find most of this in the northern parts of the country. So it's for me, a very challenging one. But also, looking ahead, we've seen some improvements. And then with the exchange rate as well, we've seen some marginal stability in the exchange rate. Because that basically drives inflation. When the exchange rate is depreciating quite rapidly, GUTA and the rest will tell you, it makes business very uncertain, and that creates a lot of problems. But we are seeing some resilience, we are seeing some gradual turnaround. So hopefully we'll see more of this in the first 2 quarters of 2024.
On his part, President of govt, Joseph Obeng, blamed government for the high inflation recorded in 2023. He warned that the number of tax measures announced by government to be implemented in 2024 could derail the gains made in bringing inflation down, since traders will pass on the cost to consumers.
It's very important that going to 2024, we are guided by the past, what happened in 2022. The stability that we are getting now in 2023 is very important for us, and that we need the sustainability of same. You realized the perennial depreciation program that we've been here every January to February.
Yeah.
So this is the time to now, because during that time, the masters of the economy are going, the Chinese and all that, they are taking all the chunk of their resources to go. How are we going to manage that? That's what my fears. So if we are not able to manage it well, there being the end of the year, entering January where Chinese are going for their holiday, and you know they control a chunk of our resources.
For you, your fears that the stability that we are seeing with the CD, the biggest challenge is in January, February.
And that we should also do anything humanly possible to get the second tranche of the 600 million to help bridge any gap that this thing will create. Otherwise, if we also mismanage the stability, and then we see the kind of depreciation that we had the last quarter of 2022, then of course we will be in trouble. And then also the VAT as it is structured, it's not helping. Now going forward, we don't want to have any confrontation with
Aluta continue.
Yes, and also that's also another measure of triggering the inflation that we are having. Because don't forget that since we changed the 3% flat rate on 2021, 2022 we started having this inflation that we experienced because we're paying 3%, just 3% flat rate, and then we migrated to 22%. That alone shot up the inflation. And don't forget the straight line of 6% that is not refundable and all that, and that is also cascading. So if we are serious about tackling inflation, that's why I was saying that government should do it side by side with the governor of Bank of Ghana, that we should be able to also restructure the VAT system to help the growth of businesses. Otherwise, the cascading effect alone on the VAT is triggering.
The bit about the taxes as well, whether we like it or not, is going to kick in. If it kicks in and the cost build-up goes up, you're going to pass it on to us?
Definitely.
Interesting.
Business people are not for the Christmas, and we base everything on the cost. So the increase in prices is not as a result of increase in our profits. The increase in prices is as a result of increase in cost of doing business, from duty payment to taxes that we pay, through to the VAT that is also cascading in the market. That's what caused the high rise of prices.
Interesting.
And then also going into the election year, as Prof said, we have to manage our expenditure.
Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Chumakwawa, lamented that cost of doing business in Ghana is still high compared to other countries in the sub-region. He appealed to government to work with the Bank of Ghana to reduce interest rates and also reduce the cost of electricity to the industry sector.
When we are talking about electricity tariffs, we are talking about cost of production. When we are talking about cost of finance, and I just mentioned policy rate being high, I talked about interest costs being high. When I'm talking about what does it mean? I talked about the value chains being effectively developed such that the raw material supply to the industries will be cheaper. And then the logistics for moving them. So we talk about this all the time. So anytime he talks and says, we are not talking about the real issue and we are only tackling the imports and all that, it's not true. These are the issues you and I have been discussing on a daily basis. So indeed, we acknowledge that cost of production is high and we need to deal with it. But we must also acknowledge that some countries, by virtue of the fact that they are more advanced in a lot of things, they have a cheaper cost of production than us. I mean, if you take electricity, in China, it's about 4 to 5 cents per
But Mr. Kwabwa, just a rude intervention, just a rude one. I mean, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and from what we are hearing, they are really not that more advanced than Ghana when it comes to some of these infrastructure.
Yeah,
People are knocking down stuff from there and bringing it here into Ghana. Same multinationals bringing it here, and they are way cheaper than what we are producing here.
Yeah, but you should also know that we are also exporting quite a lot. How are we also able to export to those countries? Every country deals in products that they have comparative advantage in. So bear in mind that much as some products will enter our market, we are also entering other markets. So it's not also the fact that we are only receiving Nigerian products and no Ghanaian product is entering that market. If you are not able to enter, there are sometimes difficulties with the protocols of entering these countries, restrictions at the border, and so on and so forth. So let's bear that in mind. I mean, he talked about oils and all that. You know, the value chains have to be looked at. In Ghana, a lot of the raw material base for our oil producers, it is produced by the peasant farmers. In Côte d'Ivoire, they have plantations. So those are factors. It's not based on the individual. So at the production level, there's a limit to which you can control the cost because the input cost is higher. If you are being fed by a plantation which is consistent, regular, and reliable, programmed in a certain way, your cost of production will be lower. So those factors, we understand it. And that's why the likes of Wilma have plantations, but it's never enough to feed the factory. And they still even import some of the raw materials. So there are certain areas we are reasonably competitive. But then every country also has a responsibility to institute certain measures to protect its industries. Even in the US, they do so. In Europe, they do so. So where there are import measures, such as tariffs and all that, it's universal, it's international. We have to go by it and make sure that people adhere to it. Compliance level is good so that even if you are important at the right circumstances. And AGI members have never said they are afraid of competition. It's the unfairness that we always talk about. If you think as textiles, for example, we always complain about textiles. The fact that you produce your design, you spend a lot of time and effort and money producing your design. In a few weeks, somebody goes to China and brings the same product. Is it about competition? Is it about import? It's about unfairness.
Still on the program, the General Agriculture Workers Union, its secretary, Edward Kariwe, charged the government to implement phase 2 of the Planting for Food and Jobs program to improve food security in the country. He advised government to also pay attention to food inflation.
Well, the food security situation has to do with not necessarily about total production. It's also about our ability to preserve what we have produced. Now, as we are experiencing now, the rice is lying in the sun and then it's lying everywhere.
And that's the situation as we speak right now. That is the situation as we speak right now.
That is it.
Wow.
Yes, as we speak now. As we speak now. And then, of course, I've just been to the fields and I'm just speaking with you.
Okay.
And so you can see that by next month, that same rice will not be available. It will either go to waste or it is taken out. So the food security into the 2024 is precarious in the sense that you may find food within the system. Like I'm talking about the rice that is being dumped into the market. But you see, you need to have money to be able to access that. You know, those who have incomes will say that, oh, we can buy the rice and then use it. It matters not whether that rice is from the local producers or imported. For the consumer, once he has enough money to purchase the rice, then they will do so. But for the majority of the people who do not have incomes, because they are not wage earners, or even if they are wage earners, they have so much responsibilities on their heads they need to use their wages for, will end up not being able to buy enough. So food security is going to be a problem in 2024. More so, you can only eat when you have money to buy. But we are talking about a situation whereby we produce ourselves and we don't necessarily need to come out with money to buy to be able to eat. So for those people who have not got money, food security is going to be so acute, serious in 2024.
Sounding optimistic, the president of the Ghana Hotels Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr., said the hospitality sector benefited from some funding from the government. He pointed out that the tourism sector has more to offer in the economic growth of the country in 2024.
Positives outweigh the negatives a bit. First of all, getting to the end of 2022 into 2023, we were fortunate to benefit from the 10 million grant from the Ghana Tourism Development Project. So a lot of the facilities benefited from that grant, which enabled them to improve upon their facilities. And again, the same year too, we've had a lot of promotion when it comes to tourism. First of all, we had a presidential summit, which the president himself was there, and that gave tourism industry a lot of attention, which I believe is also contributing to international visits. And again, just about a month ago, we also had the investment summit on tourism as well. And right after that, there was an MOU on a $50 million grant to the industry to improve upon some tourism sites. In relation to the Ghana Tourism Development Project too, you saw the improvement of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, which has increased a lot of visits to that particular park. And of course, you mentioned the December AGI. So when it comes to attracting visitors, both international and domestic, we are doing very well. And that's the positives. A lot of good goes into the positive. It is the business environment which brought in the negatives, which my colleagues have spoken about. So what I'm saying is that if we are able to deal with the business environment in terms of the cost of living, the inflation, and then the exchange rate, and some of the taxes which my colleagues spoke about, then we'll have, because you see, we are getting the occupancy, that's no doubt. We are getting it from the improved visits that we are getting. But when it comes to the cost of operation, when it comes to utilities, when it comes to the exchange rate, then you put the figures together and you see that the profit margin, it's getting lower and lower. And that has implications for reinvestment into the business.
And finance lecturer at Andrews University in the USA, Professor Williams Pipra, advised Ghanaians to live within their means since 2024 is an election year.
So the strategy or the cash flow plan on a balance of payment must be well looked at. I like the way the government is managing the situation with the BDCs, because that is one of the areas. There is a fight that the government must keep on with the extractive industries. Now the government wants them to bring all proceeds into the country. So what strategies the government or Bank of Ghana putting in place to ensure that all proceeds come into the country before they are disbursed? So it's a way that we will have to go by to strengthen our balance of payment. So for me, in terms of central government approach, that is where the focus should be. On the company level, if I'm managing any company in Ghana, there are three major areas that we all pay attention to on our cash flow: operating activity, investing activity, and financing activity. This is the time that all companies should focus or pay much attention to their operating activities. When you focus more on your operating activities, you tend to collect your receivables faster, and you find a way to delay payment to your suppliers. You call it spontaneous type of financing. Companies, I know that may be slow in expanding, and that is what's going to happen in 2024. major companies will not be expanding or investing into other areas because they want to stay afloat within the current situation. In 2024, I'm expecting profits should drop, not as in the past. All because of the coming in of the various taxes. These taxes are going to impact businesses. And then there are some companies, I'm sure by the end of 2024, may even not pay dividend. They may roll over their retained earnings because of the impact of the taxation and taxes that has come in place. For me, that is my highlights and strategies that I think that I've talked about the government level, the company level, and then on the individual level, I'm expecting that Ghanaians live within our means. This is an election year. We may see a lot of activities, but for us to be able to stay afloat with these new taxes coming in, the strategy is let's live within our means and then contribute our wants.
You're still watching Business Live. We are pausing for a breather. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back to the program. The Ghana Revenue Authority will soon go after money worth $2.8 billion in the accounts of Ghanaians resident abroad for tax purposes. The initiative, which is coming under what the tax authorities call Voluntary Disclosure Program, will also target foreign nationals in Ghana with accounts outside the country. Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Reverend Dr. Amisha Dai Owusu-Amoah, has been giving more details on PM Express Business Edition.
This year, as I speak, we have data of 70,000 accounts outside Ghana coming from 45 countries, and that is the first one we have received. The next one we are expecting, which will come early January, is coming from 80 countries. And for the 40 countries, the total value of the 70,000 accounts of Ghanaian residents outside is $2.8 billion. And when we started working on it in terms of looking at the potential tax, because it doesn't necessarily mean that when you have an account, but because we have to engage you and find out what is the source of the money and things like that, and then we'll be able to establish whether tax has been paid already or tax has not been paid already. And in 2 months, when we started, we've already, I want to say raised that limit that we have collected. We have raised the tax liabilities of about 1.6 billion Ghana cedis, not dollars. I'm saying that the amounts, the balances that we receive is 2.8 billion. The tax we have raised in 3 months for only 400 out of the 70,000 accounts is 1.6 billion Ghana cedis. I mean, this is assessments raised. And I say again, let me be very clear that when I say assessment raised, it doesn't mean that we have collected, because these are initial assessments that you've made that would impact on you moving ahead to make the collections, right? Yes, so we communicated to the taxpayer that based upon this information, based on our engagement for you, this is what we think you have to pay. And so if you think that it is not accurate, or you have some information that you need to, you are free to bring the information, and then we'll look at it. Does this fall under the double taxation agreement that you've reached with the other countries and developed countries, or on what is the legal basis of this action? Because there are some who might raise confidentiality issues about it, and the fact that I already meet my tax obligations in London and in US. Why do I have to share that information with you? Okay, so we have the OECD agreement, and the OECD also have what they call the automatic exchange of information, and then the exchange of information on request. So there are 2 scenarios. And countries globally signed to this agreement. And Ghana has signed on to it. Yes. So far, there are about 150 countries that have signed onto it, which includes Ghana. And when you sign onto it, it doesn't also mean that you get automatic information automatically. you do what we call exchange of information on request. What it means is that Ghana can go to, say,
UK?
Djibouti or something and say, can you give information on this? That's on request. Now, the automatic one, all the countries that are part of it and those who have satisfied the conditions to be able to do automatic exchange will automatically send everything that they have concerning residents in your country, and you also send to them concerning residents in their country. So it's automatic, and it's a platform that is used. And so it is very legal. And once it's done like that, there are certain minimum requirements in terms of your technology, in terms of your data protection, in terms of your systems, and there is an assessment team.
Thanks so much for watching Business Live, and on behalf of the entire business team, we are indeed grateful for your time here on the Joy News channel watching Business Live throughout the year. I am Pius Kojo Baka. We shall connect next year. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye-bye.